that we usually have in place. We're going to change it a little bit this week. Denise Driehaus is here. She's going to give us an update on Hamilton County. And so she's going to start off first, and we'll have some announcements after that. So I'm going to turn it over to Denise Driehaus. Here she is.
So 5 minutes, because we've got a board meeting at 1. But thank you for being able to squeeze me in. I really do appreciate it. And I was on my way up to the Blue Gibbon, just so you know. And I thought, I'm going to the wrong spot. So as you know, and I saw the list of folks that are coming in to speak to the group. So you've got all the, some of them are here, candidates on the ballot in 2019. And even though it's an off year, and I want to use the air quotes for that because I don't know that we ever have an off year, it is still an important year to continue to be engaged and make sure folks go out to vote. I obviously am not on the ballot in 2019. I'm on in 2020. I'm on a 4-year term, and I will always run in the presidential year. And so that, remember, the primary is in March because of the presidential, and then the general obviously in November. So I'm on in 20, but I'm trying to get out to as many Dem clubs as early as possible just to check in, give a little bit of an update on the county. I told Katie's with me, she's my intern. She's going back to school in like 3 days, but we're trying to teach her as much about this process as possible. So thank you for coming, Katie. But go through like a top 10 list of some of the things that we've done, and because I think it's important, especially to Dem groups, to know what it means to have Democrats in the majority, because it is very different than having the Republicans in the majority. I think you need to understand what has happened since the flip, which was in my first few years on the county commission. I've only been there 2.5 years, but Portune and I were in the majority for those 2, and now we've been joined by another Democrat, so now we've got all 3 seats occupied by Democrats. So I'm going to do that very quickly. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you have, and I'm going to leave here in about 20 minutes to get back for the board meeting. So anyways, so I'm testing this on you. You're my first Dem group to do this with, and you said you like to hear speeches that make sense, so here's hoping that it makes sense to you guys. All right, because we've, I feel like we've done so much, and yet there are so many challenges still in front of us, but I don't want to lose sight of the things that we have done because I think they're really important. And so right off the bat, when Todd and I were elected, we made sure that all county employees make $50 an hour, at least. And it took a little doing. I don't know if you guys know much about the county, but it's a slow-moving organization, and they're not too keen on change. And they haven't had change in a long time. And to have a woman come in to boot, ladies, was especially surprising to them. And so everything takes a minute, but we're still pushing. So $15 an hour for all county employees. And so that was one of the first things we did. We also did a pay equity study to make sure that women and men were being paid on par with one another relative to their experience and education. And surprisingly, we're really good. We're really good at this. So I was like, okay, check. Since Todd and I have been in the majority, one kind of the sleeper is that we appoint a lot of people to boards. We've got about 30 boards. Think about the zoo and the Port Authority and the library and zoning commission, and we've got lots and lots of boards. I would encourage you all to apply, by the way, and you just go on the website and you can figure that out. But since we've been there, 77% of the individuals that we have appointed to boards are either people of color or women. So it has provided for a lot of diversity because those boards were not very diverse when we got there. And so I'm very proud of that statistic as well. Also, I'm the chair of the Heroin Coalition. It's extremely challenging, as I'm sure you all know. We have this great collaborative where prevention, treatment, law enforcement, first responders, public health are all in the room together trying to connect the dots and make smart decisions for this community. But when you walked into that room, when I walked into that room, I said, wait a minute, everybody's not here. And so we invited the hospitals in, the business community in, and the faith community in. And so we are rounding out the organization. We are losing people every single day. And so I don't like to talk about this with too much optimism because we still have a huge problem in this community, especially related to fentanyl, and that it's being mixed with all different kinds. It's not just heroin, it's cocaine, it's methamphetamines, and so it's a huge issue, but we are working diligently to bring a very humane, dignified, and progressive approach to that issue, and I'm trying, and I'd be happy to expound if you'd like me to. Another thing we did right off the bat was put money aside for the Western Hills Viaduct. that was a long time ago. Nobody remembers this, but we did it. And so we had a license fee increase, and what we said was, we want half of those dollars to be in a local match for the viaduct, which is critically important, as many of you know, as a connector to the job center up in Clifton, particularly to the west side, and the university. But we set aside the other half to be used on road and bridge projects outside the city, because we're the county. The city has their own pot of money for these things, and so as a county commissioner, we said these outlying areas also have needs. And so those dollars are being applied in that way through that license fee. So Todd and I were super excited about that. Another thing we've done is related to kinship care. So when a child is no longer safe at home, we're trying, by the way, JFS is doing a good job of trying to keep kids safe at home if we can. If it's a problem with your utility bill, and that's the reason the home's unsafe, maybe we can do something about the utility bill and not take that child out of the home. So we are trying to create a different approach instead of just saying, oh, the child's got to go. I mean, that's so destabilizing for the families, for the kids, for the parents. And so that said, some kids are coming into care. The best thing we can do, though, for these kids is place them with kin. Generally it's a grandparent, and generally it's more than one child. But what we were hearing from grandparents is that we would do this if we could, but we can't. We don't have the capacity financially to do this. Oftentimes they're retired, fixed income, one-bedroom apartment. You kind of know what I'm talking about. And so, because if that doesn't work and we can't go to kin, then they go into the foster care system. It's extremely expensive and it's destabilizing. So we said, well, we need to incentivize the kin, right? And so as of 2 months ago, if you are a kin and you want to take a child in to keep them safely with you, temporarily hopefully, we will give you a stipend. Because the foster family gets a stipend. Kin get a stipend, but it's tiny. And so now it's $350 a month to take the child in to help buy food, accommodate the child, whatever needs to be done. That is brand new in Hamilton County. Nobody else is doing this in the state of Ohio or anywhere else. We did it because we got an increase in the levy, and you all helped provide for that increase. I want you to know that we took that support seriously, and we are doing very proactive things with those dollars to make sure we got a system that works and responds to the needs of these kids. So I worked on kinship care when I was a state rep years ago, and finally, we've got something going on in Hamilton County related to this, and it's really positive. I'm going to count these. I'm not going to do it backwards. Number 6. Another thing, I'm the president of the commission right now, first woman ever to be president. And so when you go in and you're at these meetings, they're at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Who can make that? I mean, you guys maybe could, but a lot of people can't. And so once a month, we take the meetings out into the community, and they're in the evenings, so that people can come. So we've done this since January. We've been all over the county, and people love it, and they're coming. And we're not always the most exciting group, and our issues can be somewhat mundane, but we try to make it relative to that community and talk about what's going on there to promote Forest Park or Silverton or Green Township or wherever we were in Anderson Township last time. So we're trying to connect with the community and also say, we are your partners. We are the county commission, and we want to be viewed as partners, and so please come. And we're trying to be as accessible as possible. The state of the county is another. I gave the state of the county for the first time this year, obviously because I'm president. Used to be at the Rotary Club. I like the Rotary Club. They're very nice, but that is a close group, and you have to be invited. And so this year, the state of the county was at Memorial Hall, and everybody was invited. And it was a lot. We had a lot of fun with it, and I think it's presenting the county commission a little bit differently as forward-facing. It's more community-facing, a little more accessible, and that's kind of what we're going for. Another thing we did, I don't know, some of you would qualify maybe for this, I don't know, but your MSD bills are super high, as we all know. That is still with the judge, and that has not been resolved. That's one of the big things we have not resolved. Anyway, we haven't. But in the meantime, we're trying to provide some relief to people that need the relief, especially in this community. And so we just instituted the CAP program. It's a customer assistance program. Under Ohio law, we can give a break to seniors who qualify for the homestead in the state of Ohio. So those folks starting I think last month or the month before that, are now getting a break on their MSD bills. We are trying to expand the program. Under Ohio law, we can't do any more than that. That's it. But if we get a change in Ohio law, and we're talking to Cecil Thomas about this, we can maybe expand that to other low-income people, or people that rent, or just a different group other than just that one. It's a work in progress, but at least we are making some progress. And the water rates were renegotiated with the city. The city was trying to raise water rates pretty substantially out in the townships. And we negotiated with them, and the water rates are not going up for the next 50 years, or maybe 40, could be 40 years in the counties in Hamilton, or in the townships in Hamilton County. So that was something that, again, I'm very proud of being able to negotiate that. We are building a coroner's lab, as you may know. It started way before I got to the commission. It's underway. But Todd and I, hey John, wanted to know, not to be mistaken for John Kennedy, who is on the list today, but Todd and I thought it would be very important to have good paying jobs and local jobs on that job. And so we put a community benefits agreement on it. We've never had that in Hamilton County before, where we said those jobs have to be good paying jobs, union jobs, and local jobs, and still meet the minority numbers that we need to meet. Because we want to marry these two things. It's challenging, but the coroner's lab is we don't build that much stuff, so this is the opportunity to do it, and we did it. And so it's kind of a pilot, so we're waiting to see how it goes, but I personally am optimistic that would never have happened without a Democratic majority on the commission. We fought tooth and nail, took 2 years to get that done. And then lastly, number 10, is my commission on women and girls. So we've never had a commission on women and girls in Hamilton County before, and it's a very unique thing in the state of Ohio. The purpose of it is to have 20 women and 10 girls talk about issues that are important to them related to safety, related to promoting women in the community. Remember the boards I just talked about, or into elected office. Just nurturing and supporting one another and listening to the girls about what is going on in their lives that they think it's important for us to respond to. So one of the recommendations, last year, let me give you an example. Last year's recommendation was that as a county, and we implemented this, we no longer ask anybody about their pay history, salary history, when they're applying for a job at the county, because right away, ladies, we're at a disadvantage, because we tend to get paid less than men. Right away, we're not going to make as much. That's fine. We don't ask that anymore at the county. And we are encouraging businesses throughout the county to take the pledge and do the same. This year, the girls have had more, and we've kind of been pushing the girls to be a little more active. And I hope nobody gets uncomfortable with this conversation, now I think about it. But I don't know if you know this, but in our public schools, and really all of our schools, girls are really struggling to, when they're on their periods, I'm sorry guys, when they're on their periods, to have period products available to them. Right. Some girls can't afford it, and some girls are just embarrassed about it. We've all been there. And so the girls said they want to go to the school board and say to them, we need to make period products accessible to girls. Some schools have period product lockers, but it's not in the bathroom. So you got to go there, and then you got to carry it to here, and you know what I'm talking about here. So we're like, well, why wouldn't you put them in the bathrooms, right? So they're accessible. So it's something that these girls have identified as one of their #1 priorities. We're trying to engage P&G to see if we can get some product donated, because they do that kind of stuff. But the girls are going to present at the school board. So we are building leaders in these girls so they go advocate for their own issue. We, of course, will be there supporting them, but that's not what this is about. And so I am very proud of the work that we've done on the Commission on Women and Girls to move issues that are a little outside the frame of what we're used to dealing with, but we still need to make sure that people in this community feel supported no matter who they are. So that's my top 10 list. There are a myriad of other things going on. I'm sure it really topped a lot of the music venue and the Millennium and other things. But I do want to say that having a Democratic majority on the county commission has made all the difference in the world. And we are moving in a very different direction. The budget is coming out today. You will see priorities in that budget that we have not seen in this community in the past. And I am very proud of the work. So I'm happy to answer any questions. John, I think you're the guest speaker, so I don't want to take any more time, but happy to answer any questions you have. Yeah.
Thank you for coming. This is a much more progressive group than the Hamilton County Democratic Party.
Talk louder.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Could you talk about taxes, some tax abatement, as well as taxing authorities having to compete for corporations to come in promising jobs that don't happen?
So we are partners with the Port Authority, which is a lot of where that happens. We are not the city, and we don't do quite as much of that as I think what you're referring to with the city. That said, though, sometimes there are incentives.
Know stuff about it.
Yeah, there are incentives, right, that can be provided to organizations or companies or whatever it is to come in and build in a certain location and incentivize that behavior. And so I will tell you personally, when I was a state rep, we did not do a very good job of saying, I will give you an incentive, but then you made commitments by job commitments primarily. We don't pay any attention. And it's $8 billion at the state level. That's what we're giving away. Well, when I was there, I offered a bill, and they're actually doing a little bit to say we need to claw back. If you are not meeting your goal, now jobs are important, right? And so the incentive provides something to the community. But if you're not providing it, then we're going to claw it back. So at the county, we have a Hamilton County Tax Incentive Review Committee that meets once a year. This is how few of these we do, but it's important that we do that. So we review them once a year, and if they're not performing, we take steps. We don't automatically kick them out, but we say you are on notice, and if in a year's time when we come back and review this, you haven't performed, we're going to claw that back. I mean, that was the whole purpose of it to begin with.
There are no consequences written into the agreement.
Well, it's only if you take these meetings seriously. And so in the past, my impression is no. There has been really no oversight. But we've appointed new people to this commission, just what I was talking about. And so we have said to them that the directive is to make sure that people are doing what they said they would do, or they can't have the incentive. And so we are starting to take them more seriously. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not a question, but in this process that I'm doing running for office, I noticed that there are a lot of groups doing similar things but operating in isolation. So I wanted to ask if you had heard about this with the menstrual products at one of the Student Achievement Committee meetings over the summer at Cincinnati Public Schools. It was brought up. I was very excited to hear about it and did have to have that conversation with the men in the room saying, look, this is for real. We burp, fart, and sometimes women have periods. Why can't we have products to take care of that?
Yeah,
So I didn't know if you knew about that.
No, I did not, but it's a real thing. And it took the girls, of course, to bring this to our attention. And so that's the importance of having the girls in the room. But what they told us was that some girls can't afford the products. And so we need to be especially sensitive to any stigma associated with this. And that's why having them in the bathrooms makes all the difference in the world. But I did not know that, but I suspect CPS, the board will, when we go present to them. And I'm happy, I mean, we're all about the partnerships. Yeah, so.
Back to incentivization for tax abatements. When you say they have a meeting and they come in and have to prove that they are actually doing what they promised to do, is there somebody that actually goes out to the sites and verifies the paperwork? It's my understanding basically they're turning in paperwork, but there's no one to really verify what they turn in. There's no accountability in the sense that they can cheat. They can write numbers down that are not, no one's finding out. Are those numbers real?
So this is all run through HCDC at the county, and so Harry Blanton does go out to, especially if we see numbers that are concerning or don't match up with what we've seen in the past. He does go out and tours the facility. These are fairly small companies, and so it's not like you're going out to P&G and saying, where are your records? These are fairly small, and remember, they're out in the county, and so he goes out and does site visits. I don't know if the board does site visits or not, but it's a great idea. I would, next time I see you, because I hope to get back, I will have more information on this as to how many. It's like 30 or 40 maybe countywide, but let me follow up with you. But I know he does site visits, because we had 2 that we were concerned about that weren't meeting their numbers, and so I know he went out and to talk to those guys. Yes.
Well, I'm very excited to have a Democratic majority on the board, and I'm very impressed with this report and the achievements that you're documenting to us today. But I have one question, and I'm not very knowledgeable about this, but it seems like I've heard that there's been an issue between the city and the county regarding the water, and I know that the water bills are very expensive. And what I've heard is that the water bills are expensive because the county is paying for, having to borrow money, I assume, for the separation of the drainage water, if that's the right word,
The
from,
consent decree.
huh?
The consent decree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of curious where that all stands.
So I want to distinguish something for you. So water rates and MSD rates are two different things, although they can come on the same bill, which it's very confusing.
Yeah.
Water rates we've resolved, and we did have a conflict with the city. I talked about that with the townships in particular. Resolved, rates remain flat for the next 40 years, we're good to go. MSD is different. MSD has been an issue between the county-owned, city-runs MSD, and it's been like that since '68. So the expiration has passed, a 50-year agreement. So we are in a continuation period right now until we can resolve this. This started way before I got there, but I will be honest, I mean, it continues. So Judge Barrett has it in front of him in his courtroom. The consent decree is driving all the upcharges because the consent decree, it's a federal consent decree, and it says we have to separate stormwater and sewage. The way we were built here in Hamilton County, almost all of it's combined. It's an extremely expensive proposition. And the Fed said, do it, and we're not going to give you any money. And that's exactly what they're doing. And so you have seen rate increases in the past related to the consent decree and just the general maintenance. Let's not forget the system, right? The general maintenance of an aging system. We have held rates flat for about 4 years, trying to get some relief from the federal government related to this consent decree projects. Portune went to DC, I think it was last year, made some headway, they passed a bill, we're hoping to see some relief, which is why we're anxious about raising rates. Like right now, it's like, well, wait a minute, if we're gonna get relief, do we need to raise rates? If we don't, then maybe we do, but we're not quite there yet. And so that's kind of the tug and pull with MSD. Your rates went up a lot, about 6 years ago, that's when they really went up. But the consent decree is billions of dollars of work, and we have to do it. And so the ratepayers have to pay for it because it's not general fund, either city or county. The ratepayers pay for all that, and so that's what we're dealing with.
Thank you.
And it's still a problem. I'm not going to lie. That's one thing that has been a frustration that we have not been able to resolve. The structure, which won't take care of it, it's not going to affect the consent decree. We still have to do that. But I do think if we could resolve the nature of the structure, it would at least resolve some of this angst between the city and the county on it. It's been going on for 50 years, but it is challenging.
Thank you.
I think we're all very fortunate to have Denise Driehaus serving our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I wrote a summary of all this, I didn't get everything down. It goes to 380 people, so it's worth getting it right.
Does anybody know about the homestead tax relief for old people? That's Denise referred to, and you can get, if you get that, you can get abatement of your stormwater fees, MSD costs. Is
Yeah, so
that?
it's the CAP program. It is on, I believe it's on our website. I know it's on the city's website. We just started it a couple months ago. And so if you go on there, I wish I had some of the, I usually carry those around with me. I don't think I have any. But anyway, it's a very simple application. And so if you apply, they will let you know whether or not you're eligible, and then the relief will start if you're eligible for that. It's all based on the homestead exemption in the state.
The homestead exemption is old people to stay in their homes, they reduce the tax, right?
Yeah, but it's we're using the same criteria. Anybody that's eligible for that is eligible for this. It made it simpler and cheaper for us to run the program instead of setting up a whole new program. So we're using that criteria.
That's the most important thing you told us today,
Well, I started with that. That's on my list.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you so much, Denise. We always appreciate you coming down here. You came right after you were elected, and it was amazing the changes that you've made. So thank you very much, Denise.
Thank you.
And I know we usually do announcements, but John came from court. John has to go back to court, and so I'm turning this over to John Kennedy. I got to go door to door knocking for him a couple weekends ago. It was a great experience. People are, once again, just like we did a year ago, people are wanting to hear the names of the judges, and they want to meet the judges. And John's been out there every weekend knocking doors. So, here you go, John.
Thank you very much, Kim. Thank you for having me, guys. Just by way of an introduction, for those of you who don't know me, I am John Kennedy. I'm running for District 4 Municipal Court Judge. That is fantastic. I know you guys have a map in front of you. That's most often the first question I get. It's basically the bottom southeast corner of the county. That area is District 4. So, obviously, when it comes to the municipal court races, the judges are elected based on those districts, but they hear cases from all over the county. So each district has 2 judges, and basically you have a 1 in 7 chance of having the judge who you vote for hear a case that happened in your neighborhood. So it's kind of a weird thing that affects everyone, even if you don't live in the district. And by way of background, I am currently the director of the Common Pleas Division of the Public Defender's Office. So I've been in court representing indigent defendants my entire career. I did the Ohio Innocence Project when I was in law school. That really sparked my interest in wanting to represent those who couldn't afford an attorney zealously and to the best of my abilities, because when I was working with the Ohio Innocence Project, I saw a big deficiency in reading through case files of attorneys that were appointed by the court who did a terrible job and an injustice to those they represented. For those of you who don't know what the Ohio Innocence Project is, it's basically a full-time innocence project, the only one in Ohio, at the University of Cincinnati's Law School. And they field letters from all over the county, or all over the state, excuse me, for people who've claimed to be actually innocent of the crimes for which they've been convicted. That's something that is luckily more and more, people know more and more that is something that happens. And one of my clients during that time actually was exonerated the year after I graduated. In reading through his transcript, it was horrifying that this was so clearly a case where the state star witness was the one who actually committed this brutal murder and just was nice enough to point out my client and another person and provide all the details the police needed to seek a conviction and get a conviction. But luckily he is out now. But I started off in municipal court, and we have a number of changes that need to take place here in Hamilton County. We are behind the curve in terms of things like bail reform, staggered docket times, and fairness. Right now we have 14 municipal court judges, 12 of whom are former prosecutors. That is a unified view of how the world works and how it should work, but no vision in how it could work. My background, always representing indigent defendants, lets me see the travesties that happen here in Hamilton County. We have clients who are held and as little as $100 because they can't make a bond. They lose their jobs, they lose their housing. If they are the sole caregiver for a child, Job and Family Services is going to take that child into custody because there's no one there to provide for them. All because they are too poor to pay a bond. And that's a system that we don't need. And that's a system I know the city itself has pushed for that bail reform. The county has done nothing. And what happens is you have a justice center which is filled with people who are just too poor to pay. Because it doesn't matter what you're charged with, if you come from resources, you will be able to get out and be back out on the street. But that's not who we are currently locking up in the jail. The jail, for the most part, are people who are pre-trial incarcerated. So they haven't even been convicted of a crime. And they are there until their case is resolved. And after they lose all of the things on the outside they had, they are incentivized to plead guilty as quickly as possible, because there is an understanding that the quickest way out is via a guilty plea, whether you did it or not. And when it comes to municipal court, there are judges currently on the bench who believe that a trial is a breakdown in the criminal justice system. That is a quote that I have heard, and my colleagues have heard from more than one judge in Hamilton County. Explain that. Okay, well, what we have in Hamilton County is a jury tax. And that basically means if you do a trial and you lose, you will get the maximum penalty. Whether or not you deserve the maximum penalty, the fact that you exercise your constitutional right to a trial, you're going to get the maximum sentence. And I've had cases, I had a guy who was a triple major at UC, no record at all, was convicted after a jury trial in municipal court, and the judge gave him the maximum sentence. No record. Great GPA. It was a nonviolent offense, but because he had the audacity to take a case to trial, he gets punished for it. And what I mean by a trial as a breakdown in the criminal justice system is, that's how the judges view it. A jury tax is a punishment that they use to try to keep people from exercising their constitutional rights. And this isn't all judges, but it is something that, I mean, one of my colleagues had that happen in common pleas court last month. And it was a foregone conclusion that if you lose a trial, you're going to get the maximum sentence, regardless of if it's warranted or not. And that's a system, and this isn't all judges. But we have the opportunity. I know Denise was talking about the changes a majority Democratic representation have had on the county commissioners. That same thing is the opportunity we have this fall. We have, right now there are 8 Republican-endorsed judges, and there are 6 Democrat-endorsed judges currently on the municipal court bench. And if you look at that map, basically the 3 districts right in the middle, 1, 2, and 3, are all, both seats are currently held by a Democrat. You go around the outside, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all Republican. If we can flip 1 seat this fall, if I win, if Carrie Bloom, who's running in District 5, wins, which is the south or the northeast corner of the county, if Erica Underwood wins, who is running in District 6, then we have a Democratic majority. And what has currently happened, and I was talking with Aftab a few weeks ago about this, there's some things he would like to do in the court system that he is just getting stonewalled by the judges who don't see a problem in the current system. So they're not looking for a solution, and actually they're fighting any type of change. And if we can change even 1 seat, that number goes to 7-7, and then the presiding judge will be a Democrat, because the longest presiding judge is Judge William Mallory. He's been on the bench the longest. He would be the presiding judge. And now we have the opportunity to change things like bail reform. And I don't know if anybody's ever been to the courthouse, but you have lines out the door at 9 in the morning. And that's true if it's the middle of winter, if it's blistering hot outside, if it's pouring rain. There are lines out the door because all of the judges set their dockets at 9 a.m. So you have all the subpoenas go out to all the witnesses, the victims, the police officers, the defendants, the family of the defendants, all converging to the courthouse to go into one of 29 judges' courtrooms between misdemeanor court and common pleas court. In the afternoon, The courthouse is a ghost town. There's nobody there. It's empty. And that is just one of those things that, why? Claremont County, who doesn't have nearly the population we have, has afternoon dockets. Why don't we have afternoon dockets? The courthouse is open. The deputies are manning the metal detectors, doing nothing, because the courthouse is open until 4. Why? Instead of making everybody call off work and sit down there, they see a subpoena that says their case is going to be called at 9 a.m. Well, that's not how that works. You might be sitting in a courtroom until 11, 12, told to come back after lunch for a case that you planned to be out of work maybe for an hour or 2 in the morning, to arrange childcare for an hour or 2, and instead you're there until the afternoon. And it's a system that is so easy to change if good judges are elected. And I know a lot of times there's a big drop-off in terms of knowledge about the system, the court system in general. Once you get past all those D's and R's for those people on the ballot, you get to the judges and there's nothing. And I will tell you, I've never had any judicial candidate knock on my door. And that's something that this affects so many people in Hamilton County. Your taxpayers, your taxpaying goes hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Justice Center to house people, to house poor people. You might have a family member caught up in the system. You might be hit in a traffic accident. You might be a witness to a crime. It affects so many people. And municipal court, between criminal misdemeanors, civil cases, and traffic, there were about between 110 and 120,000 cases in 2018. So it affects a lot more people than the public at large knows. And that's why we've been out, myself, Carrie, Erica, Judge Yates, all out here trying to raise that awareness, because that is something that we need to change. And this year, there are crucial municipal court races, and next year, there are crucial juvenile, common pleas, and appellate court races. And I'm sure everybody's aware of what happened in 2018 with the appellate court judges. The coordinated campaign, Judge, I don't know if anybody's heard the names, Judge Bergeron.
They're all guests here.
Judge Krause. Those two right there changed the landscape of the Court of Appeals here in Hampton. Right there, those two. Because right now, there's an understanding that it's not a rubber stamp, whatever the prosecutor did is fine. Because you have judges up there who are going to hold everyone to the same standard. And that's all we've ever wanted with the attorneys here in the county, is just fairness. And it's been lacking, and we can change that this year. But I know there's varying levels of understanding of what municipal court is. If you have any questions, anything about me or the system itself, I mean, I do this every day. I've always done this since I've passed the bar and been hired at the Hamilton County Public Defender's Office. So I will talk about this all day. If there are any questions, anything else? Yes?
Oh, wait for
Here you go. We'll start with Karen.
I just want to be more specific about what areas you cover, so I know which of my friends to hit on.
Thank you, thank you. So District 4 is basically Anderson, out on the Claremont County border, up to Marymount, Fairfax, Norwood, Oakley, all the way downtown to 8th and Plum. So you have Mount Adams, Mount Washington, Mount Lookout, Hyde Park, Columbia, Tusculum, and then those Anderson, Marymount, Fairfax, Norwood, Oakley, part of Columbia Township. East Walnut Hills, if you'll look, it's actually District 1. Yeah. It's basically right there by Eden Park is kind of the demarcation, because Mount Adams is District 4, East Walnut Hills is District 1. So that would be Judge Mallory, who's running unopposed this fall.
I have this electronically, so I will forward that to Peter so that you can actually enlarge it and you take it right down to the streets and the numbers on the streets. So I will send that to Peter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a personal curiosity question.
Mhm.
Did you ever notice while you were in law school, well, first of all, when you went to law school, was there a particular area of law that you were interested in? And follow-up is, while in law school, did you notice any kind of predilection among your peers, whether they might be more prosecutorial or more like a defense attorney, if that makes any sense?
It absolutely does, because that's a conversation we had. In terms of the field of law, the interest and all that, I didn't have any interest. And I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to law school, and that was really what kind of triggered the Ohio Innocence Project after my first year, is what triggered it. In terms of predilections one way or the other, yeah, I mean, I could probably go into the current law school class and be able to differentiate who's going to probably be a prosecutor and who's probably going to be the defense attorney. Because for the people who are, we had those even in my class that I know, that it was, oh, you're just making snap judgments without all the facts. Maybe being a defense attorney is not the best thing for you, because you need to absolutely look at all the facts, decide what you can do, and understand that your role is justice, and to represent your person to the best of your abilities so that you can have the best result you can get for that person. But I think one of the fundamental things defense attorneys need to know is, or to believe, is each of us is worse than the worst thing we've ever done. Or, excuse me, each of us is better than the worst thing we've ever done. No.
Can we quote you?
Yeah. No, that's actually where Brian Stevenson, it's each of us is better or more than the worst thing we've ever done. And that is something that goes to the core of being a defense attorney. And that's what I believe, and that's why I do what I do.
I have a question back here.
Yes.
It seems, I had this before he got his. Sorry, you're offended. I wonder, in the prosecutor's realm of thinking, it seems to me that they want to win under any circumstance at all costs. And it also seems they have more money to get a win, because the defense, people looking for public defense, the lawyers don't have much time with the clients, don't have much time to determine the facts. They sometimes meet the clients at the door of the courthouse. And I'm just wondering about that discrepancy. And also, in the Innocence Project, these prosecutors that have committed illegal acts in order to get a conviction, they don't seem to be held accountable in the law, in terms of the law. So can you comment on that?
Yes, sure. So the first part of that, I believe, was the prosecutors want to win at all costs, I think is what you said. There is definitely an aspect of that. I've had clients who have been innocent of the crimes for which they've been charged. I know one in particular, it was charged with murder, and we had brought forth who actually committed this murder, and that our client was a innocent bystander. And the prosecutor's response was, well, he can plead to 10 years. He can go do 10 years in prison. There was no understanding. And the judge at the time, when we, of course, had to do a trial, said it was the first time that he had seen defense attorneys not only prove that their person didn't do it, but prove who did do it. And that is the uphill battle that defense attorneys have when you have that old school prosecutorial mentality of win rather than justice. Because that's what it's supposed to be. That's what the canon says, is justice. There is, for the resources, there is a disparity. Because the prosecutor has the police department at their disposal to investigate things and things like that. But there is not as big of a difference as there has been in the past in terms of the resources necessary to effectuate a zealous defense. And we have, my office, I have requests for experts come across my desk from various people, either in my office or private attorneys who do appointed work, where our office will actually pay for experts if they're needed on cases for various aspects. If it's, false confessions, if it's suggestive lineups, DNA experts or things like that, to kind of try to level that playing field. But, it is something that there is an aspect of that, that it is an uphill battle. But I think it's always going to be an uphill battle when it comes to society at large who is just going to draw a snap conclusion about somebody they think is guilty based on a news story. That innocent man I had on the murder case, we even contacted the news afterward, after he was acquitted, to say, hey, are you going to retract that story where you pasted his face all over your news site about he was arrested for this murder? Are you going to tell them that he was acquitted? Silence. Yeah, and that's what we've been trying to do, is try to change that and it has been changing. I know there is a night and day difference just in my office between when I started in 2011 and now, in terms of there's been new management and there are higher expectations. But the last thing about meeting at the door, that is actually not, we have been able to change that. My defense attorneys always have the ability to investigate everything they need to investigate, to take the time to learn about the individual they have as a client before having to do anything on the case. So that is something we've also changed as we've changed the culture.
Okay, when I was canvassing for AFTAB, we had little cards with the pictures of the judge candidates, which I think would really made a big difference. And I would say, this is confirming what you said, the best conversations I had were often with people who said, why should I give a damn about the judges? And I felt, having gone to a number of fundraisers for judges, I could name things like the bail bond system, and I had my own little experience with going to court on just a driving thing, but but only because I could afford to sit there till 11:30, my case got dismissed. I had all these pictures, I was preparing all these arguments, but since the other guy had to go somewhere, they just dropped it. But so I think that really speaks to people who have a job, and they have some relatively minor thing, and they're stuck for hours in the court. So I think there are a lot of good arguments, but I would strongly recommend these little cards. I think they really help.
Well, we have lit. We've been dropping on all the doors. I know when Katie was at the Mount Adams Dems, we had lit, and we've given it to everybody, and that is a big thing. Here's a number for you. For municipal court, it's just misdemeanor cases. If someone is given a maximum sentence, it's 6 months in the Justice Center. That will cost the taxpayers at least $12,884 to house that person. To a theft in municipal court, if it's over $1,000, it's not even in municipal court anymore. So if you have somebody maxed out on a theft, the taxpayers are going to pay almost $13,000 at least, and this is assuming they have no dietary issues, no medicine that they need, no special requirements of any kind. This is baseline. That's at least what it costs. And a lot of thefts we have in municipal court are a theft of some steaks from Kroger. And the taxpayers have to pay at least, if that person has a bad record or the judge wants to punish them, $12,884. Each day is at minimum $71.58 to house one person for 1 day in the Justice Center.
Testing. State population prisons is sextuple since the 70s. Disproportionately minority. Probably virtually all poor. Probably similar to the population in the workhouse. Disproportionately minorities, all poor. So are we really dealing with another economic issue I think it's like poor folks go to jail. It's like
Yeah.
they're like warehouses or even concentration camps for poor people. I think it's some measure of our civilization what we do with the poor folks. Do we put welfare systems together to help take care of them, or do we send them to jail? The answer is now we send them to jail.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid we're moving in the direction of fascism, given that and who's in the White House.
And to that point, yeah, no, I you know, the facts and figures you just stated are, I would, you know, that's absolutely the case. And I would recommend anybody read the book by Michelle Alexander, The New Jim Crow. Because it shows kind of how that has developed over time, where you have, you know, the war on drugs and that idea that was, you know, to society at large, oh, well, it's good, we're trying to get rid of drugs. Well, you have disparate policing of areas. You have very rich areas where I've never even seen a police officer in those areas. Where you have poor areas here in the county, where you have higher poverty levels, there are police there all the time. And what happens is you get in a cycle where more people are arrested in those poor areas, rather than seen as directed that way, even unintentionally or implicitly, directed into an area where you have a population that maybe is not seen with a lot of political power. Then it reinforces this idea that is those people or that area is crime-ridden because of the people who live there. Yes, yeah, and it just is a cycle. So you have more policing, and you have more people that are arrested, and more policing, and more people are arrested, and then it's a cycle. So I completely agree with you, and that is, I will tell you with the trend as it's changing here in Hamilton County, I think we are going the right direction. Between, you know, my office and just zealous representation and understanding what that looks like, and as we elect more judges who are cognizant of both the failings of the criminal justice system, but also more open to changes that could happen. And we have judges who are in that old school mentality of, if you exercise your fundamental constitutional rights, you are therefore a bad person, I'm going to punish you to the fullest extent that I can. We have judges now, like Judge Nestor. I'm sure Judge Nestor was probably here.
Right.
You know, there was a case that I did a trial on, and Judge Nestor didn't lock that individual up for 1 day after being found guilty. Not 1 day. Because he doesn't believe in jury taxes. A lot of the old school judges do.
I would like for you to answer the second part of the question about no repercussions for prosecutors.
Oh, sorry.
Where it has been very obvious that, you know, really just inaccurate, lying, creating evidence, that kind of thing. Repercussions for that kind of behavior. And also, what is the reason that you said it was good that most of the judges, did I hear you say that most of the judges were prosecutors and that's a good thing?
No, I didn't say that was a good thing. I said it was a bad thing.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So if you'll,
yes, yeah.
If you'll answer the second part of the question,
so
thank you.
the lack of repercussions. I mean, I think there was one prosecutor in Texas that was actually incarcerated for withholding what is called Brady material, which basically would indicate that your client didn't do what it is that they were charged with, or that they said there was some mitigating circumstance. Here there's nothing, because the first level of defense, the first level of accountability is, who do you go to? You go to the judge. And like I said, 12 out of 14 are former prosecutors.
It's a
They're,
culture.
yes, yeah.
It's a culture
it is.
of allowing, and that's
Yeah.
what needs to change.
And that is, the quickest way to fix that is to elect better judges. Because, you know, when you're a defense attorney and you're telling the judge, hey, this prosecutor stepped out of line, you're talking to, in all likelihood, a former prosecutor. You know, if there was a cartoon that was like that, where, you know, you had a jury of nothing but foxes, and then you're expecting to, you know, be able to defend somebody who is ahead. Yeah, yeah. And it's just one of those things that, you know, there is a change developing, but the thing that we need most is judges who understand that issue. Because I will tell you right now that there was outrage in the prosecutor's office. The prosecutors had a habit of disclosing an expert or eliciting the testimony of an expert at trial without following the discovery rules. Because under the rules, you are supposed to turn over the expert's expertise and a written report 21 days, at least 21 days prior to trial. For years, when this happens, the prosecutors disclose something, the judge says, so what, I'm going to let it in. Instead of saying, no, it's kept out because you didn't follow the rules, or you have to ask for continuance because you want to put on an expert, you didn't turn over what they needed and what they're required to have and you're required to give. There was just no accountability. And it was, State v. Hall that came out 4 weeks ago, I think, on a Wednesday. It was like an earthquake. There was outrage in the prosecutor's office that it was a Judge Bergeron opinion that said when this rule, I think it's Rule 16K, says the state shall turn this over prior to trial, that means shall. It was as simple as that. And for years it was, it's not a big deal that you didn't get and that's the thing, is the judges should be holding both sides accountable. And the quickest way to turn that stuff over is to have judges who say, you know what, this is an issue. And they, that murder case that I was already talking about, there was Brady material. We had a lab report. The guy we said did this the whole time. We had a lab report that they had DNA results from this unknown DNA sample that was that guy. They didn't turn it over. 9 days into trial, it comes out because we have this guy's face blown up, the guy who actually did it. And the prosecutor's case agent, the officer, we kept talking about this like he's the one who put this guy's name on this lab report. There was actually a lab result that came back to the person who's still out on the street. I can take you where he lives right now, who shot and killed this innocent woman, never been charged, and now can't be charged. And that actually ended up being a federal lawsuit against the prosecutor's office and the city of Cincinnati police for failing to turn over that evidence. So it's two-pronged. I think one, you need the civil suits, and two, you need judges, and this is first and foremost, that understand everybody has to follow the rules. It's as simple as that.
May I ask, have you been familiar with the cases of Tyra Patterson and Ariel Morales, who's still in prison for something she did not do? Both young black women. And I mean, it's just totally amazing. We're a vicious and cruel country in practically every respect. But, I mean, the mass incarceration, Tyra serving, over 20 years for something. She was present when somebody was shot, but she had no part in it. Same for Ariel Morales. She just she went out into the street when she heard a ruckus going on from her apartment with her mother. She went out to see what was happening and was arrested and is still in jail.
Yeah. I'm familiar with both, and I've actually met Tyra. I know David Singleton, but I could go a laundry list of names that people will never hear about. Names like Joshua Maxton, the guy I've been talking about on the murder case, Devin Isom, the people who the Ohio Innocence Project has gone and exonerated, Wally Zimmer, Clarence Elkins, Diane Smith, the Cleveland Three, Ricky, I can't think of his name. He did 39 years in Cleveland. for a crime you didn't commit. Ricky Jackson, thank you. And I don't know if anybody's heard of the Blind Injustice, the opera that Professor Godsey, you know, they were there. And their stories, I've lived this world. I did the Ohio Innocence Project. We're moving. Even though, you know, I've known about this and fought this system for years. And it's something, when you have a society that reaches conclusions in a matter of hours after an arrest, then facts are shaped to fit that conclusion, rather than holding off on a conclusion until all the facts are. And you need, until there's accountability, there's never going to be that reflection to say, you know what, before we jump to a conclusion about what happened in this case, let's get all the facts. And that's all anybody's asking.
I just want to thank you for all the work you've done and your dedication, because I think this is the most important work going on in the country right now. If we don't have faith in a justice system, there's no way we can have faith in democracy or any other institution. And our justice system is clearly an embarrassment.
Yes.
And it's disastrous for the country. And thank you for that dedication, because I know you could be making a lot more money in private practice.
I've heard that for years, yes. But, you know, the first step is awareness. And awareness is what's needed. Until people are aware of what's going on, they're never going to feel the need and the pressure to change. And injustice thrives in obscurity. And that's the court system as it's been, because people just don't know. And it's not through any fault of their own, because it's been for years so difficult to find out anything or to have people to talk about the criminal justice system in an unbiased way and to just talk about the facts. And that is what, you know, I know myself, Carrie, Judge Yates, Erica Underwood, you know, Judge Mallory, Judge Barry, who are all on the ballot this year. You know, we have been pushing. But thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you.
I would make two asks very quickly. Like you were asking about the specific jurisdictional lines, everybody has friends in the district. Reach out to them, let them know what's going on, and let them know that these races are important every year. And we have such an opportunity this year. And two, volunteer in somebody's campaign. It doesn't have to be mine, but just volunteer in somebody's campaign this year, because I know next year is going to be crazy. This year, if you haven't volunteered, I think this is a room full of volunteers, but if you haven't volunteered before, it's a good way just to kind of work that muscle and get in shape for what's going to be happening next year. Because it is something that, you know, you fall out of practice with if you haven't been doing it, whether it's writing postcards, making phone calls, knocking on doors, whatever it is. Just get out and get active, and thank you so much for having me.
Saturday, 11 o'clock marks the 1-year anniversary of the shootings at the Fifth Third Bank downtown on Fountain Square. There is going to be a vigil at 11 o'clock on Fountain Square, sponsored by Moms Demand Action, remembering those that died in the attack at the Fifth Third Bank Center. Are there any other really, Susan?
Want a lunch?
And lunch orders in the back to Carol, Susan?
Since judges are the topic, there's a fundraiser at Tilly's on September 8th, Sunday, 2 to 4. It's a tailgating, it's Bengals opening day here. Did I say Tilly's on Hamilton Avenue in North Side?
Great. And leave over here, she has the petitions for changing in our gun laws. So they're over here if you live in she has Hamilton County, I think. I think, is everybody from Hamilton County, anybody from outside here? But she does have the petitions. If you have not signed that petition, please do so. These were the petitions you asked about last week. Yeah, real quick.
This is just an announcement for you all. You might want to be aware. The mainstream media will blacken this out. As you know, I'm a member of Extinction Rebellion. Nothing good will happen on a dead planet. So October 9th, there will be worldwide action of disruption of whatever people are doing in their city. Worldwide action by Extinction Rebellion. You might want to pay attention. Thank you.
But also September 20th on the noon to 2 on the steps of City Hall. September 20th will also be a climate crisis protest. So we'll get that on your calendar.
Yeah, are you talking about September 27th? There's a big climate strike happening here September 27th.
So maybe it's September 27th.
Urban artifact.
Urban artifact, okay. So I do know there's one too.
May I just say that, I don't know if anyone else was at the Labor Day picnic or not. Was anybody?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw, yeah, Marlena was. And I must say Charmaine was there, you know, and it was a huge turnout. I mean, it's wonderful. A whole lot of minority people, for instance. Yeah, it was great. And Carolyn Jones was there, on the head of the school board. She said, "Oh, I love Marlena."
She's my president.
You know, so anyway, yeah. And Tracy Hunter group was there with their T-shirts for Tracy Hunter, gosh. So, yeah, all right.
Okay, thank you all. Next week, John will be followed up by Carrie Bloom. She's another judicial candidate. We'll get to know her. Thank you. Have a good week.